In the heart of America, stories still live. Original series, unforgettable music, and stories worth telling. Welcome to True Country Plus.
For thousands of years, humanity has searched for answers to the unknown. Questions about life, death, and the mysteries hidden just beyond our understanding. As a musician, storyteller, and host, I've spent years hearing stories that challenge the way I see the world. Stories about unexplained encounters, memories that refuse to disappear, and secrets buried beneath centuries of silence. What if some people really can remember past lives? What lies hidden inside the walls of the Vatican? Could ancient civilizations have known more than we do today? Is there truth behind the legends of Noah's Ark, the Ark of the Covenant, and the Garden of Eden? What secrets are hidden within classified government files? What really happened at Area 51? And are we truly alone in the universe? Across the world, people continue reporting experiences science still struggles to explain. Children remembering lives they never lived, strange lights in the sky, ancient mysteries, forbidden history, and questions humanity may never fully answer. This is not about telling you what to believe. This is about exploring the mysteries that continue to haunt our world, searching for answers, beyond fear, beyond skepticism, and beyond the veil. I'm Hudson James, and this is The Veil. There are mysteries humanity has searched thousands of years to understand. Questions that have followed us from ancient temples to modern cities. Questions whispered at funerals, questions asked in hospital rooms, questions that arrive quietly in the darkest hours of the night. What happens when we die? Does consciousness simply disappear, or does something remain? Across the world, millions of people believe the soul does not end with death, that life may continue, that somehow, somewhere, we return. For centuries, stories have emerged from every corner of the world. Stories of children remembering places they have never seen, families they have never met, names they should not know, memories that investigators claim were later connected to real people who had died years earlier. Coincidence? Imagination? Or evidence of something science still cannot explain? Tonight, we explore one of the oldest and most mysterious beliefs in human history, reincarnation, and the possibility that death may not be the end. I'm Hudson James, and this is The Veil. Tonight we explore one of the oldest and most mysterious questions in human history. Can a soul return after death? Across the world, stories continue to emerge of children remembering lives they were never supposed to live, places they've never visited, and people they should never know. From ancient spiritual beliefs to modern investigations, we examine the mystery of reincarnation. The belief in reincarnation is far older than modern civilization. Long before skyscrapers, satellites, or modern science, ancient cultures believed life moved in cycles: birth, death, and rebirth. In Hinduism, one of the oldest religions on earth, reincarnation is deeply connected to the journey of the soul. The belief teaches that every action in life shapes what comes next, that the soul evolves through many lifetimes, learning, suffering, growing, returning again and again. Many Hindus believe the soul continues traveling from one life to another until it reaches spiritual liberation, a state beyond suffering, beyond physical existence.
We think of Hinduism as having reincarnation and life after life after life, but there is really an end to that they're hoping and seeking, which is to go to enlightenment. So once they've gone through enough and I guess learned enough, they come into something that is kind of at one with. And I thought that was revelatory to us that, I hadn't heard that part of that story.
Didn't know there was an end to it, that there was seeking an end to it. They don't really want to do that. You know, what, I got to do this again? Oh, come on. Well, remember that day? How about this whole week? And that, got to go back and fix that. Until they get it right, they got to keep coming back.
From a Western point of view, you're like, well, The Hindus don't worry about it. They've got eternal life. They keep coming back. They must be happy about always coming back. But no, they don't. They actually don't want to come back.
Yeah.
Better to live a good life, be liberated from the earth, go to moksha, go to oneness with the energy of the universe. You know.
Right.
Thousands of tales of reincarnation exist in India. On the 11th of December 1926, a girl is born in Delhi. For Hindus, she was to become living proof of their beliefs. Her name was Shanti Devi. Until the age of 4, she never spoke. When she did, her first words were explosive. She told her mother that her home was not in Delhi, but in a town called Mathura, 140 kilometers away. She had lived there in her past life. Her name was Lugdi, and her husband was a man called Kedarnath Chobe. Shanti was able to describe the town in astonishing detail, even though she had never been there. She could even remember how she died, giving birth to her son 7 years earlier. For 2 years, Shanti's parents dismissed her words as fantasy. In the end, her mother decided she could no longer ignore her daughter's vivid descriptions. So one of Shanti's uncles traveled to Mathura to investigate her claims. What he found seemed to confirm her story. There was a clothmaker living in the town. His wife Lugdi had died in childbirth the year before Shanti Devi was born. His name was Kedarnath Chobe. Was Shanti his wife reborn? Dr. Ravat is one of India's leading specialists on reincarnation. He has spent much of his life retracing Shanti's story and recalls Kedarnath's first encounter with her.
When Kedarnath came to Delhi, and there were a lot of people very curious to know whether Shanti had been talking all nonsense or there is truth in it. But when in the morning, Kedarnath very openly and clearly stated that I am 100% convinced she is Lugdi. The whole thing spread like fire, and hundreds and hundreds of people used to come to see this child.
In the 1930s, India was in turmoil as the country struggled for independence from British rule. Hindus and Muslims clashed violently. Mahatma Gandhi, a Hindu, was seeking a peaceful solution. He moved Devi's story center stage in the wider struggle.
At the same time, India has many people from many other religions also. They said that it is, the whole story is a propaganda done by Hindus in order to promote their religion.
In 1935, Gandhi asked for Shanti Devi to be brought to him.
Shanti told me when she was narrating her incidences that she still remembered, even at the age of 62, that she felt the bones of Gandhi when she was sitting in his lap.
For Hindus, she was living proof that their laws controlled human destiny. By 1935, Shanti's story was a national sensation, and Gandhi appointed a commission to investigate her claims. A team of politicians, scientists and journalists took Shanti to Mathura. Their aim was to test the 9-year-old's knowledge of the town and people. Would Shanti pass? When the team arrived in Matra, they were astonished by how much the child knew. She answered many questions correctly, although several she got wrong. But she was able to describe the holy gates of the city before they reached them. She could point out new buildings and streets, which she claimed did not exist in the past. Shanti's brother, Viresh Narain, accompanied her on the journey. He remembers it as if it were yesterday.
She told the way.
She showed the way. You have to go that way. And now they are like that. And she guided the team to the home of her previous life.
Outside the clothmaker's shop, Shanti Devi met Namanda Bay, who would have been her sister in her past life.
She recognized me straight away. There were so many people, they were pushing her away from me, but she recognized everything. She knew of each lane, where it led to, knew every tenant, knew where they lived. She recognized the cobbler, the washer, all of them.
The trip culminated in a dramatic encounter. 9-year-old Shanti met 10-year-old Navneet, the son she died giving birth to. Mother and son meet for the first time.
They pointed at me and asked Shanti Devi, "Who is that?" And she said, "That is my son." "How did you recognize him?" She said, "My soul has recognized his soul." And she began to cry.
For the Commission, this was final proof. Their report concluded that if science and religion could meet on a common ground together, they could unlock the miracle of reincarnation. The case is of worldwide importance, with direct effect on mankind. We ask all scientists to help us find a conclusion.
In Buddhism, reincarnation is tied to the endless cycle of existence itself, a cycle many believe can only be escaped through enlightenment. The idea that human beings are spiritually connected across lifetimes has fascinated cultures for thousands of years. Across Asia, stories of rebirth have existed for generations.
In a Tibetan monastery in southern India, Buddhists pay homage to the reincarnation of a senior Lama. They believe Ling Rinpoche, once senior tutor to the Dalai Lama, has been reborn and is blessing them and the gifts they bring. He's here in the form of a 5-year-old boy. The ceremonies have lasted all day, and in mid-afternoon, this remarkable infant still behaves with the composure expected of a High Lama. Those who queue for a blessing are from many parts of the world and many walks of life. They include Richard Gere, the Hollywood film star. For 30 years, scientists have investigated other children who appear to remember previous lives. Tibetan Buddhists say they have their own ancient methods to precisely identify a child like this, the reincarnation of an 81-year-old Lama who died on Christmas Day, 1984. Is there real evidence for reincarnation, a form of life after death? Tibetans believe senior lamas who choose to be reborn can be traced by an ancient formula. This includes looking for mystic signs in the flame of a butter lamp, consulting oracles and astrologers, and meditation. The Dalai Lama led the search for Ling Rinpoche. A year after Rinpoche's death, search parties went to various Tibetan settlements. They returned with long lists of possible candidates.
The concerned people, you see, gave me full, I say, one quite big batch of paper on the list of the name. Then through my own investigation, not there. Then I asked them, not here, even though, you see, more than, I think, 500 or something. Then I told them, oh, it seems not here. That they are disappointed. But then somehow, they again, you see, start to fight. Then, near Dharamsala, the place called Beer, one child somehow, you see, they missed.
The child was found in this orphanage at Dharamsala. His mother had died, and his father was too poor to support him. The infant was 21 months old. The search party said he appeared to know them. One member was a servant to the dead senior tutor for almost 50 years.
Chanda, there's going to be Chanda Jitje. The member Chanda Sumja Tashi, Namchitet. And the Chanda Chanda Tuis. As Washington Dinan the Chanda Tuis. Chanda Tenda, Bed Chanda Tamatar, yes, the Majan Namsaku Komi Chanda. Charlie Shea. Charlie Shea message Kokomi Chayomaris. Kona Chayomaris. Chayom with the Chanda Donish Staj. Mata, the Nicheris. And elevate his anywhere.
The infant passed the recognition test. He could identify belongings of the dead monk from similar articles. He was declared a tulku, a reincarnated lama. He was examined by the Dalai Lama, who said the child knew his way around the palace and seemed to recognize former colleagues and servants. The new Ling Rinpoche was taken to meet the people in Dharamsala. He was barely 2 years old. His personality and bearing helped to convince the Tibetans and others that he was truly the reincarnated senior lama.
When I met the young boy the first time, right after he had been identified, he came and jumped into my arms and patted me on the head. It acted very much like he knew me. And although I did not believe in reincarnation at the time, or I had no evidence at the time, when I met this young child, I was absolutely certain that it was him, that it was the old man. It felt exactly like it was the old man back again, acting the same way he had acted when I had seen him, which was 7 years before.
Today, this child is 5 years old. The orphanage is a distant memory. The old servant is now the boy's guardian, and they live in a bungalow next to the Drepung monastery. At the end of this day of ceremonies, the boy, now Ling Rinpoche, will become a monk. The Tibetans say they have several children like this, high lamas who've chosen to be reborn. The University of Virginia is the center of research into claims by children to remember former lives. Almost 3,000 cases have been investigated by Professor Ian Stevenson. One child in 500 might have such memories, according to a survey in northern India. But the memories begin to fade by about the age of 6. There seem to be fewer cases in the West.
We do hear quite often from the parents of Western children that they wish they'd known about this research when their little boy was 3 years old, because he was saying, I used to be a pilot and I was shot down, and we told him to stop telling fibs, and now he doesn't remember anything, and we can't say much to you about the case. So some cases are definitely suppressed in the West, but they are much more readily found in South Asia than they are in the United States and Canada and Western Europe.
In British Columbia, Canada, there are people for whom reincarnation is an ingrained tradition, the North American Indian. They appear to be Christian, but older beliefs are just below the surface. These beliefs may have come from Asia, because the tribes are descendants of hunters who crossed from Asia when the continents were joined in the Ice Age. In Canada, Dr. Antonia Mills continues Dr. Stevenson's researches. Some claims of reincarnation involve birthmarks, perhaps corresponding to some injury in a past life. These will be checked against medical records. Dr. Mills has studied cases in other parts of the world. She knows there are differences here.
In most tribal groups, the previous personality, the person who is said to be coming back, is closely related to the subject, to the child. And in such cases, it's very difficult to be sure that statements that the child might make are not based on knowledge that the child could learn from its parents speaking about this person. So one has to use a lot of caution in analyzing these cases.
Let us pray also for the doctors and nurses and all those who...
Among the congregation at Maurice-Town Church is 82-year-old Emma Michelle of the Wet'suwet'en tribe. Mrs. Michelle believes in reincarnation. In this family photograph, she is aged 4. With her is her brother Jimmy, whose battered body was pulled from the Skeena River. His death remained a mystery until years later, when Emma's infant grandson, also called Jimmy, was playing on the floor. The bell in the nearby church began to toll. The boy asked his grandmother why the bell was ringing. Mrs. Michelle said it was because a neighbor was dead. The child asked, who?
Donald Gray, I said. Why he died, he said. He hired somebody to kill me that time, that's why I'm died, he says. He hired 3 men to kill me. That's why I'm died too. No, he died, he said, and he laughed about him.
The family believed young Jimmy was the reincarnation of his great-uncle. He described in detail how his great-uncle was beaten up and thrown into the river in a dispute over fishing rights. Gaffing the salmon in the Maurice-Town Canyon is as dangerous as it looks, but it's a source of status and wealth. A chief has rights here, and others must move aside. Jimmy Sr.'s right to fish was challenged by Donald Gray. There was a bitter quarrel. Ironically, the reincarnated Jimmy also died in the Skeena River. He fell or was thrown from this cliff. But his death has not ended the cycle of rebirth.
There's always a cycle that you can't stop, and this is where the reincarnation fits in.
Another of Emma's grandchildren, Nelson, is a pupil at this lecture on the cycles of life. Nelson is believed to be a reincarnation of both Jimmys. His family say that as an infant, Nelson could remember their previous lives. He used to wish he'd been born a girl, so then there'd be less chance of ending up dead for a 3rd time in the Skeena River. Today, Nelson's memories have faded, but he used to tell his family about his previous lives and a car he once owned.
He used to run around the car and he used to tell my parents, and he used to tell them that this was his car. And all the wheels were flat, and he used to kick them and say, this was his car, who did that to it? And he was just 2.5.
Really little.
Very small.
All the children in this game are said to be reincarnates, not simply because of what they remember. Some have birthmarks corresponding with marks on the dead person whose life they spoke about. Newborn babies are minutely examined for telltale signs.
I interrupt your card game. I wanted to take a picture of the bump on your head. Is that okay? Yeah. Your mom said it was.
This child is said to be the reincarnation of an aunt who suffered a head wound before she died.
This combination of statements by the child, birthmarks, characteristics, medical conditions that relate to a previous personality, these have to be examined very carefully, and in a number of cases, the evidence is very difficult to explain. For example, these cases where the children have pierced ear marks. This is not something that would be genetically transmitted.
Birthmarks on the ears are similar to scars caused by earrings worn by chiefs. In some cases, a tribal elder has had an announcing dream, saying that a chief has been reborn. An examination of the baby has then revealed the matching ear marks.
I have not been able to think of an explanation that accounts for the phenomena in these cases other than reincarnation. But what reincarnation is, what is being reincarnated, that's of course still a very large question that's not fully understood.
Professor Stevenson has studied hundreds of birthmarks and birth defects in children who claim previous lives.
I'm particularly interested in a collection we have about 15 cases where there are two birthmarks corresponding to bullet wounds of entry and exit. And forensic pathologists know that nearly always if you shoot somebody, the bullet wound of entry is small and round, and the bullet wound of exit is large and irregular in shape. And that's the way our birthmarks, in about half of these cases, they correspond exactly that way.
This boy was born without a right ear, but with memories of the life of a man who was shot in the head.
He remembered the previous life of a peasant farmer, this was in Turkey, who went to sleep at the end of the day in a pasture, and a neighbor came along hunting rabbits, and in the twilight mistook this sleeping peasant for a rabbit and shot him with a shotgun at point-blank range. We were able to go to the government hospital where the wounded man had been taken, and there we found a report showing that he died about 10 days later of hemorrhage in the brain. And this boy had memories of this man's life and his death.
But reincarnation was not limited to the East. Ancient Greek philosophers discussed the possibility that consciousness could survive death. Some believed the soul existed before birth itself. Others believed human memory may somehow transcend physical life. Even today, belief in reincarnation exists across religions, cultures, and generations. For some, it is spiritual truth. For others, symbolic philosophy. And for skeptics, it remains an idea unsupported by scientific proof. But despite disagreement, the stories continue, and some of those stories are difficult to forget, because in many cases, the people claiming memories of past lives are not adults. They are children. Very young children. Children who should not know what they describe. Some of the most disturbing reincarnation stories begin in ordinary homes. Parents reporting behavior they cannot explain. Children describing events that happened years before they were born. Detailed memories, specific names, specific places, and in some cases, specific deaths. Many alleged reincarnation cases begin between the ages of 2 and 6, an age when imagination is common. But according to some researchers, certain stories go far beyond ordinary childhood fantasy. Over the decades, investigators around the world collected reports from families who claimed their children described previous lives in startling detail. Children speaking unfamiliar languages, recognizing towns they had never visited, describing occupations, accidents, and family members connected to deceased individuals. Some children reportedly described how they died. Others spoke about homes, spouses, or careers from another lifetime. In some reports, children displayed intense fears linked to the deaths they described. Fear of water, fear of fire, fear of loud noises, fear of airplanes. Researchers studying these cases noted that many children eventually stopped discussing the memories as they grew older, as though the memories slowly faded with time.
A Louisiana boy offers incredible evidence that should satisfy both sides of the soul debate. His case offers proof that the soul is real, that it can be reincarnated, and that science can study it. At the University of Virginia, a group of psychiatrists use science to unlock the secrets of reincarnation. Since the 1960s, the Division of Perceptual Studies has been collecting cases of children who claim past life memories. They now have files on 2,500 children.
Well, I think what the research shows is that for people who are open to considering the possibility that there is evidence that consciousness at times can exist separately from a functioning brain. So in the cases of these children's reports, if you look at the best cases, they provide evidence that at times there can be this carryover of memories and emotions that seem carried over from one life and continue on in another.
May 2000, Lafayette, Louisiana. A mother awakens to hear the screams of her 2-year-old son.
He was laying on his back, and he was kicking his feet up like this and pounding his fists like this, just kicking and screaming at the top of his lungs.
Andrea Leininger cannot soothe her baby James. Eventually, he falls back to sleep. She thinks the nightmare is over, but really, it is just beginning.
Then the next night, he had another one, and it was the exact same thing, the same exact kicking motion. And the more he had it, the more bizarre it became because it was so specific and so repetitive.
This marked the start of one of the best documented cases of possible reincarnation in history. Today, James Leininger is 12.
I play sports, baseball, soccer, go to Ascension Episcopal School. I have a lot of friends there. The other kids, when they were younger, say, I want to be a fireman, I want to be an astronaut, but I was always, I want to be a fighter pilot. I want to be in the Marines.
Oh, you got your school pictures?
Yeah.
Oh, they came out nice.
From the age of 3, James's parents began to hear stories from their son that shocked them. That their son was recalling things that connected him to a Navy pilot who died in 1945. They were skeptical. Bruce is an HR manager in the oil industry. Andrea is a former ballerina turned instructor. As Christians, they never believed in reincarnation, but they began to piece together an amazing story. The first clue came from the terrifying, non-stop nightmares that James began having at the age of 2.
He was saying, airplane crash on fire, little man can't get out. Airplane crash on fire, little man can't get out. That's when I was like, oh my God, is that what he's been dreaming this entire time?
What he was saying wasn't registering as much on me as what he was doing. He was flailing around in bed. And I remember the very specific thought I had at that point. This looks like The Exorcist. He was freaking out. I had this thought, he possessed, what is going on here?
Within a year, the visions that greeted James in his nightmares began taking shape when he was wide awake.
I was reading to James, and then he sat up and he goes, Mama, the little man's going like this. And he laid down, and he goes, and he did the same thing he did in his dream. He was kicking his feet up, and he goes, the little man's going like this. Ooh, 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 can't get out, can't get out. And I sat him back up, and I said, who's the little man? And he goes, me. It still makes my hair stand up. And Bruce said, what happened to your plane? And he said, it crashed on fire. And he said, why did your airplane crash? And he said, it got shot. And Bruce said, who shot your plane? And he went, oh, the Japanese.
James then gave his parents the next uncanny clue, one that was very specific, the name of a ship from which he says his aircraft took off.
So I said, well, did your boat have a name? And he said, Natoma. And I'd never heard the word before. And I went down the hall and got onto the computer and Googled it. And down around hit 300, all there was this thing, Natoma Bay CVE 62. Clicked on it, and up comes this history of a World War II aircraft carrier. And so that was the beginning of what the heck is going on here.
Standing there staring at this picture of this little, it was like an aerial photo of this little aircraft carrier in the water, and we just stood there staring at it for a long time.
I had no answers. You know, how could he know this? How could he know a person? How could he know a ship? And what did all this mean? So that was where I really just said, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know what I'm going to find, but I'm not going to stop looking until I get as many answers as I can get.
This was enough to send Bruce on an investigation, doing his own research. Over the next 2 years, he learned about the men from the Natoma Bay, both living and dead. And James kept giving his parents additional, tantalizing, eerie clues.
Well, I kept asking him, do you remember what your name was? Do you remember what your name was? And he always said James. And I thought, well, he's 2, he's confused. He thinks I'm asking him what his name is.
Then, James started drawing.
That was one of my mission things.
The mission thing, you remember that?
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite ones.
The same thing, over and over. Like a movie, compressed all into one frame. An air battle. Flak. A plane on fire. And his signature, James 3.
So one day I was in the kitchen, I was washing dishes, James had breakfast, and he had an airplane, he was just flying around like this, and he goes, Mama, before I was born, I was a pilot, and my airplane got shot in the engine and crashed in the water, and that's how I died. And I was just froze. It was such a bizarre thing to say, but it was just that matter of fact. There was no drama, there was no emotion to it.
At 3, James started pretending to be a pilot, with an attention to detail that astonished his father.
One day he dragged a car seat into the closet in my office, and he set up a little cockpit in there. He had a little play school console, and like it was going to be a cockpit, you know, and he's going back and forth. All of a sudden, the door comes flying open, and he comes rolling out of it. I said, James, what happened to you? He says, I said, did you fall? He says, no. He says, my plane got shot, and I bailed out.
The next breakthrough came when Bruce was invited to the Natoma Bay Veterans Reunion. He asked about the names of men killed in battle. And this led him to finally solving the mystery of James 3.
He called me on the phone and he said, you won't believe this, there's only one guy from Natoma Bay who was killed during the battle for Iwo Jima, and his name was James M. Houston Jr. And I said, wait, that would make our James 3. I was so excited. I'm like, that's it. I'm like, that's him. It's James M. Houston. His name is James. It's the James 3.
James Houston Jr., World War II Navy pilot. At age 21, on March 3, 1945, his plane was shot down over Chichijima. Now, the skeptical parents were sitting on compelling proof that their little boy really was reincarnated.
This plane, the Wildcat, is the plane that James M. Houston crashed in. And he was a test pilot for the Corsair. And he would test fly those off of carriers. The F-18 is the plane I want to fly when I grow up.
Since he was 2, James showed an unusual fascination for military air shows and an uncanny familiarity with vintage aircraft. His parents cautiously made contact with James Houston's only surviving relative, his sister, Anne. At first, she didn't know what to think about the little boy who claimed to be her brother reincarnated. But then, James asked her for a painting that only one person other than her knew existed.
She sent this January 16th, 2006. Says, Dear James, I do hope that this is the picture you asked for. It is the only one of me done by my mother. I am sorry to be so long sending it to you. These past few weeks have been very busy and hectic. I hope you like it. With my love, Annie.
James believed then, as he does now, that it was the dead pilot's soul asking for that picture.
I had asked her for a painting that my past mother had done for her and me. This was in her attic for 50 or so years. My parents and she thought it was crazy that I would know about something like this.
Anne, too, became a believer. And there were other, more chilling connections. James had 3 G.I. Joes he named Billy, Walter, and Leon, names his parents thought were strange for a boy to choose.
Bruce is like, hey, James, what are you going to name your G.I. Joe? And he's just playing, he goes, Walter. And so we were like, Walter? Bruce goes, how come you named your G.I. Joes Billy, Walter, and Leon? And he goes, because that's who met me when I got to heaven. And it was one of those moments where like the blood drained out of our face and we just kind of walked backwards. Bruce went in the office, I went in the office, we closed the door. He's in there going through papers like this. I'm like, what are you looking for? What are you looking for? He finds this piece of paper and he says, Billy Peeler, Walter Devlin, and Leon Connor were all in the same squadron as James Houston. I was like, when did they die? Did they die before? He's throwing papers around, pulls out another sheet, and he looked at the dates of death, and they all died before James Houston died.
They all flew with him.
Although James's dad remained skeptical that reincarnation might really be possible, what happened next was uncanny.
So we're cleaning up the yard. He's playing in the leaves. I said, I just love you to bits. And he goes, well, he said, I knew you'd be a good daddy when I picked you. And I said, what? And he said, well, when I found you and Mommy, I knew you would be good parents. My head was shrinking to the size of a raisin, you know, my brain. I said, what do you mean when you found us? He said, well, I found you and Mommy in Hawaii.
James told his father that he saw them in a pink hotel, which is where the Leiningers were staying when they decided to have James. Bruce and Andrea were cautious about asking doctors and psychiatrists for help. They decided to find their own solution to James's ordeal. And their solution was to go to Japan, to the very expansive ocean where the pilot, James Houston Jr., died.
Thou who art the pilot of the souls of men.
The boat was right above where the wreckage of the plane was. And Bruce did this beautiful memorial service. And so I thought that was a perfect moment for me to just say, I sat down with him and I said, Jim Houston's been a part of your life for as long as we can remember, and he's always going to be an important part of who you are, but you have a life to live as James Leininger, and it's time for you to say goodbye to Jim Houston. And he just started bawling. And he cried for about 20 minutes.
He had everyone on the boat.
It was the saddest thing I ever seen.
He had everyone on the boat.
Crying. It's time for us to say goodbye. James Houston.
Goodbye, James and Houston.
Good job.
I salute you.
Good boy. You're so brave. You're such a brave soul. Such a brave soul and spirit.
It was weird when we got back to shore. It was something had changed.
He left something there.
He really did. It was palpable. You could see that he'd mourned that and everything that had happened and was ready to move on. And he really did at that point. That's kind of when everything really changed.
I'm going to be the same thing that James M. Houston was, a pilot.
The next picture that James Leininger drew was one of peace. The nightmares stopped. The memories started to fade.
I don't want him to remember anything about his past life. He has a life, and I don't want him to be bogged down or confused or...
Well, he's our son, he's not Jim Houston.
Got a life to live.
Today, James Leininger can remember nothing specific about the soul that used to torment him.
The spirit that I used to have when I was 4, 5, 6 has gone away. I'm just James now. It's not... I still have James Houston in me, I think, but it's not so much the bad history. It's more of the peaceful history of his life.
One of the most discussed elements in reincarnation research involves birthmarks. Some investigators claimed birthmarks, or physical abnormalities, occasionally matched injuries suffered by deceased individuals connected to alleged past life memories. Supporters believe these cases suggest consciousness may somehow survive physical death. Skeptics argue coincidence, suggestion, and selective interpretation are far more likely explanations. But for many families, the experiences felt impossible to ignore. In one reported case, a child repeatedly described a previous family living in another town. The child remembered names, roads, personal details, even locations never discussed around him. Eventually, investigators traveled to the town. According to reports, several details appeared to match a real deceased individual. Stories like these have appeared across India, the United States, Europe, and South America. Some are simple, others are deeply unsettling. And while many can likely be explained through coincidence or suggestion, others continue to provoke debate. Because beneath every story lies a deeper question. How much of human consciousness do we truly understand? Modern science can measure brain activity, it can map memory, it can study emotion, but consciousness itself remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in existence. Why are we self-aware? What creates identity? And can something of that identity survive after death? For believers, reincarnation offers hope. The idea that life continues, that death is transformation, not extinction. For others, the idea is deeply unsettling. Because if consciousness survives, what else might survive with it? Memory, emotion, pain, regret? Perhaps that is why stories of reincarnation continue to fascinate humanity. Not simply because they challenge science, but because they challenge mortality itself. Modern science approaches reincarnation very differently. Most mainstream researchers do not view reincarnation as established fact. Instead, psychologists and neuroscientists often search for explanations rooted in memory, environment, and human perception. Children absorb information constantly: television, conversations, books, stories. Some experts believe young minds can unintentionally combine fragments of information into imagined memories. Others point to the power of suggestion, a leading question, a repeated conversation, an emotional reaction from adults. All of these can shape how children interpret imagination and memory. False memories themselves are a documented psychological phenomenon. Human memory is far less reliable than many people realize. Studies have repeatedly shown that memory can change over time. Details can shift, events can merge, entire experiences can be remembered differently from how they actually occurred. And yet, even some researchers who remain skeptical acknowledge that certain cases are difficult to explain fully, particularly cases involving highly specific details later connected to real people or locations. For decades, a small number of researchers attempted to systematically document reincarnation claims, interviewing families, collecting testimony, comparing details, searching for patterns. Their work remains controversial. Critics argue that cultural influence, confirmation bias, and selective reporting weaken many of the claims. Supporters argue dismissing every case ignores genuine mysteries. But perhaps the deeper issue is this: humanity still does not fully understand consciousness itself. Even today, scientists debate the fundamental nature of awareness. How subjective experience emerges from the brain remains one of science's greatest unanswered questions. And until consciousness itself is fully understood, questions surrounding life after death may remain unresolved. Throughout history, human beings have searched desperately for meaning beyond mortality. Religion, philosophy, spirituality, science, every generation attempts to answer the same question: what happens after we die? Reincarnation is only one possible answer, but it may be among the most emotionally powerful. Because unlike concepts of distant heavens or unknown dimensions, reincarnation suggests something familiar. Another chance, another life, another beginning. And perhaps that possibility continues to resonate because deep down, humanity has always struggled to accept the idea of permanent endings. Perhaps reincarnation is mythology. Perhaps the stories are coincidence. Perhaps memory, grief, culture, and imagination combine to create narratives humanity desperately wants to believe. Or perhaps something deeper is taking place. For thousands of years, people across every culture on Earth have searched for evidence that life continues after death. Not because the question is fashionable, but because it is human. Every person who has ever lived eventually faces mortality. Every civilization has attempted to understand what waits beyond it. And despite all human progress, the mystery remains. We have mapped the oceans, walked on the moon, split the atom, built machines capable of connecting billions of people instantly. Yet the human soul remains one of the greatest unanswered questions in existence. Perhaps consciousness ends in silence, or perhaps death is not an ending at all. Perhaps somewhere beyond memory, beyond time, beyond our understanding of reality itself, something continues. A fragment, an identity, a soul. And if that is true, then maybe the people we lose are not truly gone. Maybe pieces of us continue forward in ways we cannot yet understand, returning, changing, beginning again. For now, reincarnation remains unproven, a mystery balanced between belief and skepticism. But perhaps mysteries like these endure for a reason, not because they provide easy answers, but because they remind us how much remains unknown. And sometimes, the unknown is what fascinates us most. For centuries, humanity has searched for answers hidden just beyond the edge of understanding. Questions surrounding death, consciousness, and what may lie beyond this life. Whether reincarnation is spiritual truth, psychological illusion, or something still undiscovered, the mystery continues. And perhaps somewhere, in memories we cannot explain, humanity is still searching for evidence that death is not the end. Until next time, welcome to the Veil.
They say some truths are never meant to be found.